concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. It's very good to be here with you on a Sunday afternoon. A chilly Sunday afternoon here. A chilly and cloudy. We've had like 3 weeks of beautiful, cool, warm weather, breezy, sunny, no rain. I know it can't be like that forever, but man, if there is a way to usher out the summer and usher in the winter, that was it. But now it's getting dark earlier. It's cloudy out. It's chilly. It's starting to feel like fall, and that's fine too. Because let's face it, who wants to go trick or treating in t-shirts and shorts? But I can't think of a better way to spend an afternoon. You know, like if it's beautiful weather outside and it's time for me to do the live stream, sometimes I'm like, but I wish I could be flying. But today, no, I don't wish I could be flying. I mean, I kind of always wish I could be flying, but it's been so good. But it's good to be here with you, here on the stream as well. Yeah, good to be here with you. Good to be here with all of you beautiful, beautiful people in the chat. Yeah. Good to be here with you in the chat. I'm going to be reading your questions and answering questions about FPV from you guys. Is it possible to build a 7-inch with a 30-minute to an hour flight time? Yeah, anything's possible. Anything's possible. You know, there's always design constraints, but that's probably possible. An hour flight time? Yeah, sure. That's fine. We're going to take your questions here in the chat. I will also be taking questions from these beautiful people here in the Discord server. Why? This is, I mean, technically this is quadcopter related. Technically it is quadcopter related. And I try to keep it, my live streams family, I can't scroll down because there's no more, post more GIFs so I can scroll this off screen and not get demonetized. I try to keep my live streams mostly family friendly. But, you know, then sometimes you ask, where do families come from? And for some of us, that's the answer. I will always, Stanley is my spirit animal. I mean, that's probably not true. Let me ask you this. Of all the Office characters, post in the chat, of all the Office characters, which one am I? Post in the chat. I'm genuinely curious as to what you're going to say the answer is. I identify with Stanley's eye-rolling disgust, but I'm going to bet that I would be one of the more annoying members of the Office just because I can't keep my gosh dang mouth shut. And Stanley was always just sitting in the corner doing a crossword puzzle and wanted to be left alone. And I feel like that's not me. I don't think I would be like a ringleader. I don't think I would be like a Jim or a Dwight. But I feel like I would, like, as soon as Jim or Dwight or Michael got up to some shit, I'd be right there with them. Does that make me an Andy? I don't think I'm an Andy. Toby? Interesting. Maybe Toby. A smarter Dwight. Creed. Mike Bergman would be Creed. Does that make me Angela? That's interesting. Angela. Basically doing my thing, but then, you know, when other people get up to shit, kind of going and making faces at them. I feel like when other people got up to shit, I would be on board with the shenanigans. Angela was always rolling her eyes and making faces at the shenanigans. Kelly. Rashida Jones. Kelly? A Toby. Toby works for HR. I don't work for HR. A know-it-all Kevin. Okay. Anyway. Thank you, patrons in the Discord server. Thank you for the GIFs. Very much appreciate getting that. Oh, there you go. This is actually it. I'm afraid so. Nope, that's it. And if you're like, what do you mean? Bardwell's nothing like that character. Oh. Yeah. Ask my wife. No, I'm afraid that's actually it. I'm sorry to say. What is his name? Michael California? What would they call him? Anyway. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about FPV. By the way, one more thing. If you want me to definitely make sure that I read your chat, I'm going to be reading stuff from here. I'm going to be reading stuff from the Discord. Aaron Vadas, the Discord server is not public. You have to be a patron to join the Discord server. That's like the one thing that I make exclusive. Robert, California. Thank you, Baby the Ham. I do have a wife. Juri Celestina. I have a wife and two children. So, picture that. If you want to make sure I read your message, though, hit the $ down here in the bottom. Leave a super chat, and I will be reading those. We don't have any super chats, so we still have a chance for you to be the first super chat of the stream. That doesn't really mean anything, but you could do it. I did want to talk about one other. Oh, phooey. Hang on. One other non-FPV related thing, real quick. It's kind of FPV related, and this is the European stream. I do this stream on Sunday afternoons so that people who are over in Europe can watch, and it's not the middle of the night. But this relates to Europe because there's a difference between Europe and the United States. There's a lot of differences between. One of them is that they use the metric system over in Europe, right? And we tend not to use the metric system here in the United States, except for our sodas, which are measured in liters, strangely. That's like the only place we use the metric system. Sodas and other things that are measured in grams. We won't go into because the stream is family friendly. But when I got into FPV, I started using the, hang on a second. Sorry, that should not be on auto. Sorry, I'll get to that in a second. Mike Bergman, thank you for the donation. I started thinking in grams because quadcopters, you talk about the weight of a quadcopter and everything is in grams. And I started thinking more in metric terms, grams and centimeters and millimeters. Millimeters are so much more useful than eighths of an inch. Really. Eighths of an inch, sixteenths of an inch. Like, millimeters are really, really nice for, like, measuring small things. You guys know, you use the metric system. But there's one part of the metric system that continues to defy me, and I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna do a full immersion. I'm doing a full immersion into Celsius. I figured out how to switch, and I shared, this is a photo I sent to my wife. I was like, "You're screwed now, baby. You're not gonna know what temperature it is. I changed the thermostat in the house to Celsius." And I'm changing. We have an outdoor thermometer. I'm changing that to Celsius. I'm gonna do Celsius. Now, there's a downside to this, though. There is a downside to this. She was talking about this portable chest freezer that she got for when she goes camping, and she's like, "I've got the freezer set to 5," and I was like, "Well, that's above freezing. What are you doing?" She's like, "It's breaking you. It's in Fahrenheit. That's well below freezing." I was like, "Oh shit, you're right. I was thinking in Celsius there for a minute." So, we'll have to work on it. Anyway. So I'm completing my conversion to the metric system. I still have to remember Fahrenheit and miles and stuff. All right, let's get on with the stream, though. We will read those super chats in just a little bit, but I'm going to take some. Take some messages from the rest of the chat first. Aerobrat says Celsius doesn't have enough resolution. Aerobrat, you can use decimals. You can say 32.5 if you really need to. You really can. It's okay. My thermometer actually does that. It has 0.5 on it, so it's up to you. Hassan Abid says, I want to ask you about my BLHeli32 ESC. I was updating the music, and there's a new firmware, 32.9. Should I download it? I don't see why not. I mean, I like to be on the latest firmware. Sometimes there are bugs in firmware, and flashing the firmware messes things up. But if you're happy with how your quad flies, please, I think, just leave it. But if look at the release notes for 32.9 and see if there's some feature that you want, and then you could consider updating. I don't think it's a must-have. I don't know anything about 32.9 that's a must-have. Mick Mucus. That's I don't like... I can't think of any other way to pronounce that word, but I don't like the word mucus being in your username. So could you solder both PH2 and BT2 connectors to the same flight controllers at the same time so you could switch real quick? Absolutely. There's no real downside to that. As long as you're only plugging in one at a time, you'll be fine. So, yeah. You totally could do that. Has anybody tried to rip the new transmission system out of the Avata? Tommaso Zucco wants to know, has anybody ripped the VTX out of the Avata, put it on a normal quad? Yes. There's someone who emailed us an example of having done that for the news. It will probably be on the news this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Bear in mind that eventually DJI is expected to release the O3 Air unit as a standalone air unit. We don't know when that is. But eventually that's going to happen. I've heard rumors that it's been pushed back, that it was going to be coming out at the same time as the Avata, then it got pushed back for various reasons. A lot of rumors and hearsay and nothing solid, but eventually they're probably going to bring it out, at which point you won't need to gut your Avata to do it. Francisco Gamba says, I'm building my first quad, analog quad. I'm getting a black screen and no OSD. I tried wiring my cam directly to my VTX, but it didn't change anything. Does that mean my camera's not working? Excellent troubleshooting, Francisco. That is exactly what that means. So you cut the flight controller out of the loop. It didn't change the problem, so the flight controller is not the problem. It likely means your camera is not powered up, would be my first guess, is that however you're trying to power the camera isn't working. Get your multimeter out, test whether the camera is receiving the voltage that it is supposed to receive. If it is, then the next thing to do would probably be to try a different camera. Cohib Matus. Cohib Matus is over in the Discord. Thank you for being a patron, Cohib. I assume Cohib is how we shorten your name, I guess, but I don't mean to presume. Thank you for being a patron over there. Is it worth it to upgrade my Eachine Wizard X220 to a SpeedyB F4? So here's the good thing about a Wizard. Eventually, you'll upgrade every single part of it because they're going to break and stop working. I wouldn't rush to do that. The Eachine Wizard X220, I don't think it's going to be significantly improved by putting a new flight controller on it. So what I would do is I would fly it as it is until the flight controller dies. Now, on the latest revisions of the Wizard X220, the flight controller is actually not the weakest part. Way back when, it used to come with a SP Racing F3 flight controller, and they were famous for just, by the way, it was not a legit SP Racing F3 from Dominic Clifton. It was a clone. It was terrible quality, and they would just stop working randomly for no reason, like so many things on a Wizard. The flight controller on the latest Wizards is actually okay. The main weak part of the Wizard today is the ESCs. And I saw just recently on Facebook, the new Eachine Wizard V3 was released. And I said I wouldn't buy it, because if history is any guide, the ESCs are going to die. And especially because they're these little slim ESCs that they put on the arms. And slim ESCs are notoriously difficult. Even for very good manufacturers, they're notoriously difficult to make reliable. And sure enough, I saw a Facebook post. Somebody had the new Wizard and the ESC died randomly. So, there you go. Raven187 points out that the original Wizard, the SP Racing F3 flight controller, did not have any OSD. That's true. If this is actually like a V1 Wizard with no OSD, then upgrading the flight controller might be a meaningful improvement, because you would get OSD. So I think that what's going to happen is either you're going to have that Wizard and you're going to love it and it's going to last you forever. It does happen. Or eventually the ESC will die, and then you'll say, oh, crap, I got to upgrade the ESCs. And maybe somewhere along the way, you'll upgrade it to a new flight controller. But if it has an OSD, if it already has an F4 flight controller on there, I would put that SpeedyB in a different build with better parts all around. That's what I would do. Oh, Cohib says they do have the F3 version. Okay, if it's the original F3 version, yes, upgrade the flight controller, definitely. Because that'll get you an on-screen display, and that is a big advantage. Okay. Man, that's been around for a while. Which is more efficient, 6S or 4S? Asks DLIMI Drones. 6S or 4S, cost for flight time. That's very hard to say. There are so many variables. Ryan Harrell, who is one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to motors, props, and ESCs, among other things, but certainly in that area, he is one of the premier people in FPV. He's done a ton of bench testing of motors and ESCs. He understands motors and ESCs at a level that very few people in FPV do, not just from a theoretical perspective, but from a practical lab bench testing and flight testing perspective. So Ryan Harrell argues that 6S is actually less efficient. Now, I wish I had a copy paste of the argument he makes so I could show it to you, because I'm not going to try to do it justice. People say that 6S is more efficient for various reasons. He says it's not. His arguments sound convincing. His credentials are impeccable, and I tend to believe him. So why do people tend to get longer, or at least seem to get longer flight times when they go to 6S? I think subjectively, when I switched from 4S to 6S, it felt like I noticed battery sag later in the pack. With 4S, I would start to feel the battery sag. I would go, oh, I need to stop flying, and I would come in and land. And when I switched to 6S, I just killed pack after pack because I didn't feel that sag. And if I wasn't watching the OSD to see the battery get down to 3.5, 3.4, 3.3, then I would just fly it and kill it. And I still do that. I don't kill packs anymore, but when I fly 6S, I will regularly fly a 6S pack down to 3.5 and still have plenty of life in it. And it'll be like, oh, I need to land. Whereas I just don't remember that happening on 4S packs. One reason that might explain this is that when people go to 6S packs, they tend to go to a little bit larger pack. So people will fly a 1100 milliamp hour or 1200 milliamp hour 6S battery weighing 200, 205 grams, when they used to fly a 1300 milliamp hour 4S battery weighing 175 or 180 grams. You simply have more battery. So in a lot of cases, the differences people notice between 4S and 6S can be attributed to the fact that they're not really doing an apples to apples comparison. The other change that people tend to make is they tend to run higher kV motors on 6S than the equivalent 4S. So they're essentially getting more RPM and more thrust. Now, you would think that would make the quad have shorter flight time, but who knows? The answer is that on paper, 4S will give you more efficiency, more grams per watt. But most people are going to fly 6S and feel they get better performance from it. Dominique Campbell asks, do you know how to get Blackbox data off of the SpeedyBee V3? Doesn't the SpeedyBee V3 have an SD card? I think it has an SD card. Savas Ionades asks, wouldn't 6S be more efficient, higher voltage, less amps? Savas, in a DC circuit, higher voltage would result in lower amps, which would result in more efficiency, less heat loss in the wires. There are reasons why brushless motors don't exactly work that way, is the short version. And the long version, you'll have to go to Ryan Harrell for a more theoretical. The difference is that a brushless motor is not a simple resistive load, and as a pilot, you are not a constant load, right? You're not a light bulb that draws 100 watts, right? You are manipulating the throttle to accomplish certain things in flight. So the SpeedyBee, which SpeedyBee is it? It is the, do you know how to get Blackbox data from, hold on a second, the SpeedyBee V3. I assume it's the F7. Doesn't it have an SD card? I thought I remembered that it did. Or does it have a giant flash chip? Oh, no. It's got a giant flash chip, a 500 meg flash memory, not an SD card. Peter Schmidt says the chip is defined as an SD card. Peter, are you saying that it doesn't appear as a data flash chip, that it appears as if it was an SD? That wouldn't surprise me. The SD card reader is just an SPI interface. In fact, someone once told me, and I didn't test this, someone once told me you could direct solder an SD card to the SPI pads and it would just work. I actually have one of these nearby. I could pull it out of the box and look at it. Where is it? Ah, yeah, here it is. Hold on. F7 V3. Here we go. Let's see here. So it says no data flash chip found. If we go to the Blackbox tab, it's configured as an SD card. Okay, so this is the F7 V3. It does not have a card reader on it. So what that tells me is that the data flash chip is configured as an SD card. I don't know if that information is helpful to you. It must be just such a big, chip that they couldn't define it as a data flash, I guess. Brandon Beans says SpeedyBee has a support article on their site showing how to format it first. Well, how do you do that, Brandon? Can you link me to that, Brandon? All right. Let's get some super chats out of the way. Appreciate you guys' patience. Mike Bergman, thank you for a $5 super chat. Is it necessary to run the small ground wire and TX wire on single ESCs? I'm seeing a lot of them wired with the leads and the PWM wire, and that's it. Mike, the TX wire is for ESC telemetry. I don't think ESC telemetry contains very much critical information. I often don't use it if it's a hassle. The main time that you would want to use ESC telemetry is if you have an 8S or a 12S quad that is, you're running the flight controller off a regulator because the flight controller can't take 8S or 12S voltage. At that point, you would get your voltage reading from the ESC telemetry so you could still monitor your battery voltage. Bogdan Martin once says, you forgot to show when you soldered the Vista on your V2 build. The Vista plugs in, doesn't it? It plugs into the flight controller. It doesn't solder to the flight controller. All right, Brandon, you are a moderator. Link that article if you would, for how to set up the SpeedyBee Blackbox. Crash Test 85, thank you for 5 Polish zloty. Let's make sure you didn't ask a question. Nope, just a donation. Thank you so much for your donation. Pavo Christastus, any suggestions for a Babito-like quad with HD0? Thank you for £3. I don't know of a quad like the Babito that comes as a bind and fly. Does anybody know an example of a Babito-like quad? I mean, a bind and fly would be great, but does anybody know an example of somebody that's done one similar to the Babito and has an HD0? I will search it up. The Baby Nazgul. Does it come with HD0? 1S Baby Nazgul. I mean, I don't think it comes with HD0, does it? Let's just search for HD0. Nothing. Does Flywoo make one? So the Firefly, Flywoo has a Firefly with HD0. I knew Flywoo does some HD0 stuff. Well, it looks like just the Firefly. Well, yeah, that's pretty much the closest you get. Can the driblet comes with walk snail, but not HD0, doesn't it? The driblet comes with walk snail. I don't think he ever released a driblet with HD0. So I think that's a tough one. Then there's the Odonata HD, which is going to be compatible with Vista, Walksnail, and HD0. That's also not as small as the Babito. I'm not sure how small you could. I guess if you could do a tiny whoop with a HD0, you could do a Babito. Slayer BR, thank you for 2 Brazilian reais. What's the best pen setup for analog Fat Shark D3? Analog Fat Shark Dominator 3. What's the best penetration setup? I'm guessing is what you're asking. Slayer BR, the best penetration is going to involve having more output power and good antennas. That's going to be the same regardless of what goggles you're using. You're going to want to, ideally, you're going to want a high quality module like a Rapid Fire or a Fusion. Fat Shark Dominator 3 can take that. Can take a module, can it not? I believe it can. Yes, it can. Just making sure. It's been a while. So, but you're going to want a high-powered video transmitter and good quality antennas like antennas from Video Aerial Systems or True RC. Jeffy the Quick wants to know, why do more builds not incorporate a mount for the XT60? And why are battery leads so short that they make attaching to chargers such a pain in the butt? I can speak for myself. You want to keep battery leads short because it helps protect them from getting chopped by the props. Really long battery leads will always get chopped up by the props. In addition, the longer the battery lead, the more resistance and the more voltage loss there is. It does make some difference. Not a huge amount, but it does make some difference. As far as why they don't incorporate mounted connectors, that's a little bit of a tougher question. I prefer not to mount my XT60 connectors most of the time because if the battery ejects and the plug is hard mounted, it's more likely to break the plug. Whereas if you just zip tie the wire, it gives it a little bit of flexibility and the battery can sort of pull off and not get broken. But that's the short answer. 406 from above. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Tried flashing Blue Jay on my new build from your recent 2022 budget build. T-Motor F411 light stack. It won't flash Blue Jay. Any ideas why? I've heard about problems with that F411 stack, that T-Motor stack. I heard about those problems after I mentioned it in my budget build video. There were people in the comments who were like, "Oh no, there's issues with that," and I was like, "Oh damn." I'm glad I suggested it only as an alternative to the RunCam. I don't know why it won't flash Blue Jay. I do know some ESCs are coming with different processors on them, and sometimes the firmware hasn't been adjusted for that. But I don't have a solid answer for you there. Did I pin that comment? I think I hearted the comment. Let's make sure. Freestyle drone for under $200. Is it even possible? Let's make sure. Hey. Good looking, Bardwell. Good face. Oh, I got to search in here. comments. Did anyone mention? I thought somebody mentioned that there was an issue with the T-motor. I swear. Maybe not. What is it? Is it a pacer? Light? Let's try searching for light. Ah, here we go. So yeah, I hearted and thumbs up that to try to promote it. But it's hard to say whether that's like just one report or a wider trend. So I guess we'll call this 2 reports that the T-motor light stack has an issue, unless there's something else going on here. Mike Curran, thank you for a $5 super chat. I just finished a new build today. When I try to arm, the motors won't spin, and the flight controller flashes a red LED. What am I missing? Okay, Mike, if you try to arm and it won't arm, the first thing to do is to go into Betaflight and look for the arming prevention status flags. That's going to be here in the Setup tab. In the upper right, you'll see the arming disable flags. And those flags are RX failsafe and MSP in my case. So that's the information you need. And once you have that information, you can then proceed to troubleshoot what's causing that. So in this case, RX failsafe means that my receiver isn't. There's no receiver. Betaflight RX underscore failsafe. I'll just search that. And what do you know? Joshua has a video about that from 2018. Whatever the status flag is, you're going to want to search for it. Personally, I have a Betaflight playlist showing how I would approach troubleshooting each of these status flags. Okay? So that's where you should start. Whenever you try to arm and the motors won't spin, that's where to start. Slayer BR, thank you for 240 reais. Is it worth buying the Crux 35? What about the Baby 8 Pro? Both of those are good. The Crux 35, I think that the Crux 35 is a little better than the Baby 8 Pro. They're different. It's a 3.5 inch. Both of those are pretty solid though. So I would say yes to both of those. Now, I tested the Baby Ape from Darwin FPV. The good thing about the Baby Ape is it's just so inexpensive. It's freaking $80. You should get the Pro. The Pro has a better camera. I think it's a worthy upgrade. It's under $100. Ooh, here's the Pro V2. What did they change in the V2, I wonder? It's pretty solid, though. The motors are really cheap to get spares. They're Eachine 1104 motors. You know, it's like, it's not the mostest, bestest thing you can get, but for the price, it's a very good deal. The Crux 35 is also very good. Again, for the price. Chasen Davis, thank you for a $2 super chat. Any alternatives to the Beta FPV 1S flight controller with USB-C? I would go look at FPV Cycle if I wanted a 1S flight controller. I'm pretty sure Bob has one, doesn't he? Where is Bob's 1S? This is the 1S AIO. Super Whoop Toothpick AIO. Would this work for you, or you do absolutely need an X-shaped one? It doesn't have USB-C, but, I mean, really, what are you going to do? Is that Bob's only 1S? It's sold out anyway, so who cares? Oh, here we go. FPV Cycle 1S 2S AIO. This would be a good choice. Of course, it's also sold out. So, what are you going to do? Welcome to 2022. SJ, thank you for $1 super chat. Appreciate that. Happy Model Express LRS F4 is the way to go. That's a good point, Aber. That's a good point. I'm sure glad my chat is here to help remind me of these things and make me look smarter than I really am. This is a very nice. Is this the one? Is this the 1S board? I believe it is. Let's make sure. Power supply 1S, yeah. So this is excellent. The Happy Model with built-in Express LRS 5-in-1 flight controller. Is this the one that also has the video transmitter on board? Yeah, it's very, very nice. So go for it. That's a fantastic alternative to a Beta FPV product. 661 FPV, it says that's the best 1S board you can buy. Yes. Peter Schmidt says, I've already fried 3 pieces of Happy Model. Well, Drone Rob, thank you for a $5 super chat. Drone Rob says, I'd like to update the Darwin 129 to Betaflight 4.3. It auto-detects Maytech F405, but no new targets since 4.1. Am I stuck on 4.1? No, you're not. They just changed the name of the target, Rob. Right here. If I go in here, hang on, let me zoom in. Maytech. Maytech F405. Yep, Betaflight 411. Ah, no, I'm screwed. What am I going to do? They changed the name to Maytech F405 STD. Standard. They just changed the name. Use Maytech F405 STD. Oh, great. That only goes up to 4.211, though. Where's 4.3? Where's 4.3? Did they stop supporting it? Surely not. Well, it's something. Yeah, so Maytech F405 STD. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. This is the wrong branch. Let's try again. There we go. Maytech F405 STD. Yep, that's what you need. Just use this target instead of the Maytech F405 target. You're good to go. Siati, good to see you, my friend. CB Runner, thanks for a $10 super chat. Vista does not connect to goggles. Fly app shows error for firmware revision. Any way to force flash and recover it? Wait a minute. Stop, CB Runner. Back up. There's something doesn't add up about what you're saying. If you are using the DJI Fly app, then the goggles are in the FPV drone mode. That's why the Vista won't connect to the goggles. The Vista can't bind to the goggles if the goggles are in FPV drone mode. And the goggles won't connect to the Fly app if they're in the DIY mode. So what you need to do is this. What you need to do is you need to go. This is what your menu probably looks like right now. This is the DJI FPV drone menu. Hang on. What you need to do is go into settings. Settings. Come on, Joshua. Go all the way down to about, and then go all the way down, and you should find an option, switch to DJI Digital FPV System. And when you do that, it will switch your goggles, then you power cycle. It will switch your goggles to the mode that works with the Caddx Vista. Like this. That, I think, is the problem. CB Runner. Hopefully that solves your problem. Joey Whitaker asks, do you have to run 4.3 with the new BMI 270 gyro, or can 4.2 do it? 4.3, I believe most flight controllers are only supported in 4.3. Most flight controllers, the BMI 270 gyro is only supported in 4.3. I believe that 4.2 did not support the BMI 270 gyro. CB Runner has an update for us. Sorry, I meant the DJI Assistant. Oh, goggles are in DIY mode. Are you using the RunCam Wasp, and have you rooted the goggles, CB Runner? WhatsApp FPV, thanks for a $5 super chat. Can you bake motor bells to recure the glue and not damage the magnets? I have no idea about that. I couldn't even begin to answer that question. Willie asks, thank you for being a patron, Willie. Over in the Discord server, Willie asks, I recently converted my drone to HD0, and I'm wondering if my AIO with F411 will be able to handle Betaflight 4.3 with RPM filtering. Is it a good idea? Willie, you can always just turn down the PID rate. You know, if you go down to 2 kilohertz, you'll be fine. I mean, you could always just reduce the PID rate. People in the chat are saying it's a very, very bad idea to bake magnets. That's a good point. High temperature removes magnetism. Good point. Okay, CB Runner, if your goggles are rooted and you're having a problem with DJI Assistant not showing you the firmware, here's what you need to do. One second. What you need to do is this. I just had to do this myself, and so I have it fresh in my mind. First, uninstall WTFOS. Go to the website, go to the WTFOS tab and uninstall. Then go to the CLI tab, again, in the WTFOS website. Go to the CLI tab and type WTFOS-remove-ADB. It will ask you, are you sure? Hit yes. At that point, if you power cycle the goggles, DJI Assistant will work correctly again. After you complete whatever firmware update you need to do, then reinstall WTFOS. And I think you might need to reroute the goggles. I'm not sure. But that's what you need to do. All right. Mason Nordman says, I want to get into whoop racing this winter. I'm looking for advice on rates. I'm 10 months into FPV and I fly acro. I currently consider myself intermediate and fly daily. So Mason, the first thing that you should consider is whether you're going to race tiny whoops in angle or acro mode. A lot of pilots race tiny whoops in angle mode. Some recently are switching to acro mode. You should try them both and see which one gets you better lap times. Okay, and don't think that just because you're you're like, well, I'm an intermediate pilot, I'm serious about racing. Don't assume that angle mode isn't going to be faster for you. On many courses, angle mode will be faster. Except, I mean, at some point you could be such a skilled pilot that acro mode is faster. But do the math. As a racer, you have to. As a racer, the lap times are ultimately what matters. So set up a course. Run the course in angle mode, run the course in acro mode, try to run it as fast as you can, and see which one's faster for you. As far as rates go, I mean, I would use the same rates. If I was going to race in acro mode, I would use the same rates on a tiny whoop that I use on a larger quad. I like to use Evan Turner's 533 rates. I add a little bit of expo because I'm an older guy and I need a little bit more center precision. So I have 533 rates with just a little more expo. I find them to be a little too twitchy for me otherwise, but it works great, and that would be fine. Aber the Ham wants to know, does HD0 impact the F4 processor? I feel like any additional load from using MSP OSD would be insignificant. I also think it would probably not be too significant. So I agree. That's probably not that significant. Thaddeus wants to know, is the GoPro 11 worth it to buy? And does the GoPro 11 Mini make sense on a Cinewoop because of the weight? Thaddeus, as far as whether the GoPro 11 is worth it to buy, I heard when it first came out, some people arguing that it wasn't an improvement over the Hero 10. What do you mean? The GoPro 11 has 10-bit color. It's got all this cool stuff. And that's true. The counter argument from, it was Sander Sasson. To be fair, Sander Sasson is a little bit of a, he is a bit of a complainer. I'm not sure the right way to put this. It's always good to have somebody to tell you why you're wrong and your plan is going to fail. So you can, and sometimes they're right. And you go, oh shit, I'm glad you told me that. And Sander feels like he's often that guy. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. He said the Hero 11, I appreciate his perspective on this, because when I saw the Hero 11, I was like, 10-bit color, so good. And he was like, this is unusable for me. I was like, why? Why is it unusable? What Sanders said was, number one, every customer that I shoot for wants higher frame rate. So if they're planning to output 30 FPS as their final product, they want me to shoot at 60 or 90 or 120 FPS so that they can do speed ramps in post. If they're going to output 60 FPS as their final product, they want a minimum of 120 FPS. Again, so they can do speed ramps in post and they can just play with it a little bit. They always want me to overdo the frame rate. And he said the other problem is that when you go to a high frame rate, you need a higher bit rate. Think about it. If I'm running at 100 megabits per second bit rate and I'm running 60 frames per second, how many bits per second does each frame get? Now imagine I'm running at 100 megabits per second and I'm running 240 frames per second. Each frame is getting 1/4 of the bits per second. It's essentially at a worse bit rate. Now, when you play back that 120 FPS, 100 megabit per second video, when you play that back at 120 FPS, the fact that each frame has essentially 1/4 the bit rate is made up for the fact that there's 4 times as many frames, and the image quality is acceptable. But if you're planning on taking that 120 FPS footage and slowing it down to 60 FPS or even lower, at that point, the reduced bit rate and the degraded image quality matters. In other words, Sanders' argument was that if I'm going to shoot at double the frame rate, with the intention of slowing that down, I also need double the bit rate. Now, if you have a GoPro Hero 10, there's a firmware you can get for it from GoPro called GoPro Labs that extends some of the functionality. And one of the things it does is it lets you increase the bit rate up to 200 megabits per second. So Sanders' argument was that his standard approach for a client is to shoot at, let's say, 60 or 120 FPS and 200 megabits per second. And the other thing he does is he shoots at 4:3, 4000 by 3000 resolution, because you want the sort of maximum resolution, because he wants 4:3 aspect ratio and maximum resolution, because he's going to be using gyroflow, and gyroflow is going to crop in. Okay? And his argument was that the Hero 11 couldn't do all of that stuff. And it especially couldn't do all of that stuff if you were using 10-bit color, because 10-bit color forces you to use 16:9 aspect ratio only. You can't shoot at 4:3. And he said, sorry, it's not usable for me. Now, I think that's such an interesting perspective that I'm happy to share it with you guys. It was a real eye-opener for me, a perspective that as a freestyle pilot who mostly just shoots 16:9 and maybe throws a little hyper smooth on it if I feel like cheating that day. It just was a perspective I didn't have. But yes, you can use lab software on the Hero Bones. The Hero Bones is just a Hero 10 for 06 FPV. The GoPro Labs is now available for the Hero 11, and that may have changed some of that equation a little bit. So, the Hero 11, for me, I agree with Savas Ionadis from the Discord. For me, the 8.7 sensor is the killer feature of the Hero 11. That almost square sensor is going to have a lot of potential to do nice things when you're working with gyroflow or stabilization in post, and give you a lot of flexibility to reframe the picture. If you're shooting for social media and you want a 16:9 widescreen for YouTube, and you want to be able to then take a 9:16 crop and a 1:1 crop for Instagram, a 9:16 crop for TikTok, and a 1:1 crop for Instagram, that 8.7 sensor in the GoPro Hero 11 is uniquely suited to be able to do that. The other question is, does it make sense on a Cinewhoop because of the weight? I think absolutely it does. It only saves 20 or 25 grams, whatever the weight. It's not a killer weight saving, but it is a little bit of weight saving. It's just a question of whether you are willing to give up the screen. So, yeah. Time for the ASMR section of our stream. Today we got a little strawberry watermelon and a little squirt of lemonade. That's all I'm doing. SJ, thank you for a $2 super chat. How do you record OSD with the DJI goggles? Not the subtitles. There isn't a way to do that. It isn't possible today. The HDMI or USB out doesn't show the OSD. I assume you mean you've routed the goggles and you're using the full WTF-OS OSD. The WTF-OS team is aware that this is desired and has talked about creating a tool that will record the OSD to the SD card, and then after the fact that you could use a utility to overlay it on the video. That's the best that we're going to get today. They have said that it's simply impossible for the goggles to do that in real time. They just don't have the processing power. So, SJ, thank you for a $5 super chat. I've got a 5-inch. Oh, that's you again. Thanks for another $5, SJ. I've got a 5-inch JB build. I'm getting a small but flyable twitch on the default PIDs. PID videos say increase the PIDs until undesirable thing happens. Should I decrease the degain slider? If you're getting a twitch on the default PIDs, I would take the filters down a couple notches. You shouldn't have to do that if everything is new and fresh and if you don't have like a bad flight controller or damaged frame. But the first thing I would do if I had a little bit of a twitch on the default PIDs is I would take the filter sliders to the left 1 or 2 clicks. That's how I'd fix it. Am I going to get the Avata? Asks Quadfather. Am I going to get the Avata? Most amazing video quality. Quadfather, thank you for a $2 super chat. I don't think I'm going to get the Avata. I owned the DJI Mini in the past, and I saw Stinger Swarm used to carry a Spark with him to Rotor Riot shoots. And we would come back from a Rotor Riot shoot, and later in the episode, I would watch the final edit of the episode, and there'd be some DJI footage, you know, flying up high, getting a cool overhead shot, and I was like, damn, Stinger Swarm, that's really nice. That really adds to the video. And I thought, if I had one of those, I would carry it with me, and I would get cool shots. Not just FPV shots, but like nice drone-style shots. And I got a Mavic Mini, and I brought it with me lots of times, and I tried to get some shots, and eventually I just stopped bringing it with me because I didn't find that the shots I was getting fit into my editing flow and my style of making videos. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing, I think, because the fact that I am not comfortable with an experience, and sometimes I would just look at it and go, this looks like shit. It doesn't look interesting at all. What am I doing? And like, you look at videos from somebody like a Ken Heron, and he puts those shots in his videos and they look like somebody who knows what they're doing, because he is, and I wasn't. And rather than dig in and get over that hump, I just was like, okay, this is just not happening for me. And I ended up selling it, or I think I sold it. I don't remember. I don't have it anymore. Interestingly, Stinger Swarm also stopped bringing his Spark with him. Granted, the Spark was bigger than the Mini, but he was just like, it's just too much room in my backpack, too much shit to bring. And so that's where we're at. I don't think I'm going to get the Avata, because I don't think that if I got the Avata, I would actually use it to get content. That's not a slight on the Avata. It's me who doesn't know how to use it properly. Looks like we had a little bit of a stutter in the stream. I don't know exactly what happened. I currently, as has been the case for the last couple weeks, we've had a little bit of a stutter in the middle of the stream. Everything looks completely golden from my end. And I don't know what else to tell you. We're just going to keep going. Yeah. Absolutely no interruption from my end. Interestingly, when I started the stream, before they actually went live, I started the stream and it reconnected. It disconnected and reconnected. I have no idea why. So I think YouTube's having some issues, but we're just going to keep going. Let's see here. Part of it is that, I mean, if I bring the Avata with me on a shoot, right, that's a whole nother drone I've got to bring. It's a whole nother controller I've got to bring, and potentially it's a whole nother set of goggles, although technically you can use the Avata with the DJI V2 goggles. So it just adds up to a lot more shit I've got to bring with me. Excuse me. Stealing. I'm swearing on stream. Sorry about that. Let's see here. 406 from above says, I was able to flash using 015 instead of the 016 Blue Jay firmware on the T-Motor F411 Lite stack. Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm glad you got that sorted. I hope that stack works out for you, since you did buy it based on something I said in one of my videos. I always feel bad if that doesn't work. Peter Schmidt, I am using OBS to stream. I used to use XSplit, and I thought that XSplit would be better because it was a paid product, and I was wrong. I ended up having a bug with XSplit that was a showstopper bug, and I switched to OBS, and it has been absolutely flawless. OBS has been absolutely flawless. I cannot think of a single thing that OBS has done to screw me over. It's been just flawless. The only feature I missed from XSplit was that while you were streaming, XSplit had you could be recording and streaming, and you could put a marker, a bookmark, in the stream recording, and it would literally it had its own video editor. You could open it up and you could snip apart the stream based on those bookmarks. There are a couple of plugins for OBS that try to emulate that functionality, but there are reasons why it doesn't work well for me that I don't. So the only thing I wish OBS would do would be, while it's recording, it would actually put in the actual file itself, some kind of a bookmark, or create some kind of a standard XML that could be imported into Premiere. That's about it, because it would be nice, as I'm doing a stream, for the news, to be able to bookmark the chapter markers so that people don't have to create those after the fact. But OBS is the bomb. And frankly, it's what almost all, I would venture to say almost all streamers that you watch are also using OBS. And not just the little streamers who don't have any money, but a lot of the big ones use OBS. OBS is, and it's free. It's amazing. Ask Ken Heron about Wirecast. He went ballistic last stream. He paid a lot for it. That sounds live streaming production software. Oh, see, now Wirecast is interesting because Wirecast lets you stream to multiple endpoints, I think, and also does source muxing. Wirecast has actually some really cool features. I think the big advantage of Wirecast is that you don't need a actual streaming computer. You just stream your feed to Wirecast, and they do the encoding, and they stream directly to YouTube. And if you have multiple sources, multiple people, they can all stream in to Wirecast remotely. But OBS is just so powerful. It's so ridiculously powerful. There's just nothing it can't, almost nothing. I just said one thing it doesn't do that annoys me, but there's just about nothing OBS can't do. It's really powerful. So Cyclonere, thank you for a $5 super chat. Are there different versions of T-mount props? Just got some that M2 mounting holes are too wide to line up with 2004 motors. Yup. There are, because iFlight's got to be a weirdo. Because iFlight's got to be a weirdo. iFlight has a new motor. What is it? The 1806? I think it's the 1806. I don't know. Is this it? I think this is it. We covered it in the news. I can't remember. Ciati, what motor is this? 507RC. I know you can stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, but the point is that your computer has to do all the mux, the encoding. And some people may not have a computer that can do that. What motor is this, Ciati? Please remind me. I know you know. It was me and Blunty who were bitching about it. I can't find it. iFlight has a new 6mm T-mount dimension, and there's like one iFlight prop that fits it. I don't know what prop it is. So yeah, if you bought an iFlight prop and it didn't fit your standard mounting holes, your T-mount mounting holes, that's why. There you go. I see your question, Pippos, says, can you help me out if you know? But then I don't see any other question from you. So all I know is that you want help from me, but I don't see the actual question that you're asking. Willie asks, is BlueJ 016 the best because it's the newest? Currently, my ESC runs on 014. Should I update? So, Willie, what I would do to answer that question is I would search for BlueJ release notes. Here's our releases on GitHub. And let's see. Test version. Is this in fact BlueJ? It is. Here's 016. Are there any release notes? Not really. I really wish. Okay. So it just doesn't look like much change in 016. Revert telemetry timings for BB to 24 megahertz mode. All right. A little bug fix there. 015 has added braking strength setting and faster brake on stop. Bug fixes. A little bit of bug fixes. So it seems like between 015, oh, that's 015. It seems like between 014 and 015, there were some improvements. And then in 016, there was just a little bug fix. It's probably worth updating. On the other hand, if you are happy with how your quad flies, then maybe don't change anything. It is the 1806. I did remember correctly. Why did there... So here's the Zing 2 1806. And they mention they have a unique 6x6 propeller mount spacing that works specifically with this one prop. This is the only prop in the world that works with this proprietary 6mm. They call it unique. A unique, in other words, proprietary. So if you accidentally bought this prop, it only works with these two motors. Why, iFlight? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I'm sure the thing is, iFlight is not... Here's the thing that bugs me about this. iFlight's not dumb. They're not. And they don't have a history like Emacs. Emacs has proprietary mounting pattern for their motor bolts. Why? Newbie Drone has a proprietary plug for their tiny whoop motors. Why? In these cases, I'm unconvinced that there's like a performance or a technical reason to do these things. It just seems like they did them because they could. I don't know. But iFlight does not have a history of doing that at all. Like, I can't think of a time when iFlight has made some dumb proprietary decision just to make your life harder. And iFlight is like, so why would iFlight want this motor to only be compatible with these props? Do they have some technical justification for it? I sure don't know. Like, I'm so tempted to give them the benefit of the doubt. because they don't have a history of doing this BS. But man, it's so annoying. It's so annoying that you've got this prop out there that people, and I know they've got a warning, but people are going to buy this prop by accident, and it's not going to fit on any other T-mount motor. And if people did buy this motor, and by the way, I don't think you should buy this motor. It's probably a great motor, okay? But if I can only run this prop on this motor, get out of here. Just go. Just leave. Sorry. Not doing it. Not doing it. Well, just buy spares. No. Not doing it. Sorry, iFlight. You killed it. Abraham says, I suspect the Newbie Drone motor plugs actually worsen performance. They're somehow even tinier than standard tiny whoop wires and plugs. I don't know what. Yeah. Let's see here. Captain Kazi. That's an interesting question. Kazi with a K. Kazi says, I need a solid way to view live video, presumably from DJI. My smart controller FPV live app is gone. Whoa, back up. Captain Kazi. Hey, Siati. Siati, I happen to know that you own a DJI smart controller. Has the FPV live app disappeared? I would be shocked. Captain Kazi, I have to assume that there's something that has happened to your smart controller that is specific to your smart controller. I can't imagine that DJI just nixed that functionality when so many people bought the $700 smart controller specifically for that functionality. Like, I don't think DJI would do that. They wouldn't screw you that way. I know that there are people out there who would say, of course they would. DJI will screw you any way they can because they're evil and they like your tears. And that's just not true. DJI generally has a reason when they screw people over. And DJI has a very good track record of, once they have delivered something, continuing to support it for a reasonable amount of time. So I don't see any reason why they would have gotten rid of that. And Siati confirms that it's still there on his. Did you update the firmware on your smart controller for some reason? I mean, could it have been removed in a firmware update? I don't know. When I had the smart controller, I just used it for video out and never touched it other than that. I didn't say that DJI never screws its customers over. I just said that rendering the smart controller non-functional would not be a good move. And I don't think they'd do it. In large part because, I mean, there would be potentially, class action suits or some shit. Let's see here. Let's see here. Mo says that wide FPV works very well. I tried to use the, here's wide FPV. I tried to use the FPV Out Android app recently and it didn't work. But I wasn't sure if it was related to something I did while I rooted the goggles. Ezekiel 1974, thank you for a $5 super chat. I have an Express LRS Happy Model 2.4 module on my FreeSky X-Lite Pro radio and I get telemetry lost. Ezekiel, does it have you adjusted the baud rate in the radio? If you're using a once again, the overhead cam isn't set up. I'm gonna eventually convince myself it's worth it to buy a whole nother overhead cam just for the occasional live stream. But so far I haven't been able to convince myself that it's worth another, $700 for another camera just for like the one time out of every 3 weeks that I need an overhead cam. I don't know. What do you think, chat? There's a couple things you can do. Oh, that camera's not even downstairs. I couldn't do it if I wanted to. One thing you can do is in radio setup, if you have an external module in radio setup near where, in the radio setup screen, and I'm sorry, no, model setup. I apologize. Back up. Go into the model setup screen, scroll down to external module. There should be a baud rate setting there, assuming that you're using EdgeTX. Depending on the speed of your Express LRS link, you may need that baud rate to be increased. It'll show you the current hertz that it's talking to the module, like 250 hertz. And it'll show you the number of errors. And if your baud rate's too low, you'll get a lot of errors. The other thing you can check is your telemetry ratio. If your telemetry ratio is too low, you'll get telemetry lost all the time. So those are two things you could check. Aber the Ham, thank you for the confirmation. Aber the Ham says, FPV Out stopped working for me after I rooted the goggles. Can anybody verify this other than Aber? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like any of the FPV WTF team are in the chat right now. Can anybody verify that FPV Out still works after root? You would think that it would. But that's... I was trying to do a demonstration flight for, one of my son's friend's fathers. I was flying when he came over to play, and I was like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, here, I'll show you. And I got my phone out, and I tried to do the FPV Out app, and it didn't work. And the only thing I had changed was that I rooted the goggles. However, it could have been any number of things. Multiple reports that it stopped working after the root here in the chat, apparently. Ezekiel says, I have it set at 375M at 500 hertz, 1 error. Okay, Ezekiel, then check your telemetry ratio. The best thing to do, if you have Express LRS 3.0, is set the telemetry ratio to STD, standard. And then it'll auto-adjust. Thank you, Eric Ashner, for 1/350th of an overhead cam. Actually, so the thing is, what I would need to get is, I would get a Lumix G85 body. That's what I would get. Lumix G85 body only. I have the lens. I have a Lumix G9, and the frickin' problem with the G9 is it only does 30-minute recordings. And it's so annoying when I'm working on a video and I miss the fact that it shut off the recording. Like, so stupid that it only does 30-minute recordings. I know the reason why, and it's stupid, and the world shouldn't work that way. That's only $579. So I would probably put the... That's tough. Would I put the G85 as the overhead cam and the G9 as my handheld shooter? Or yeah, that's probably what I would do. Oh, that's come down. That's come down. Is it worth $600 to have an overhead cam always ready to go, as opposed to having to either not have it when I want it? Oh, the other thing about the G85 is it doesn't have a full-size HDMI output. It has a micro. That's annoying, but that's fixable. Anyway, I'll think about it, but I probably won't do it. Why would I buy that? Just because I want all my cameras to be the same. I have a specific way that I set them up, and I want them all to be the same. I just, that's it. I was thinking about when the Sony A7S whatever came out. I was like, ooh, that looks good. It's like a $2,000 body. And I thought, oh, maybe I could, maybe it was even more than that. Was it like a 4,000? Maybe it was more than that. The number that I had in my head was like $5,000 for one camera. I can't remember if that had to include the lens. And I was like, I was trying to figure out a way that I could like convince myself, because like Stinger Swarm had that Sony. That thing is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable camera. I was trying to think of a way that I could justify spending the money, and I couldn't. And then the final straw for me was that I have 1, 2, 3 cameras just here in my studio. So if I was to switch to the Sony, I would not want to switch just one camera. And so it was going to be like not $5,000, but $15,000. And I was like, that's not even, there's no world in which I would do that. There's no world. Because I want all my cameras to be the same. What's the name of the white board you put on the wall to hang drones and stuff? Those are 3M command hooks. They stick to the wall. Tom Zboril asks, is there an easier way to cut and slice the STL file so I can combine 2 mounts into one? I like to use Mesh Mixer. Other people have said that, oh crap. What's the other program? Gosh darn it. Tinkercad. Other people have said that Tinkercad is easier to use than Mesh Mixer. Either of those can do what you're asking for. You can cut and mash together models. That is correct. I think Mesh Mixer can do a little bit more than Tinkercad, but Tinkercad is easier to use. Yeah. It's not that like in some world I could say, okay, I'm buying new cameras. It's like for my business. And I could try to like save up the money and get those cameras. But number one, I just don't think it would actually improve the quality of my content that much. And there's probably other things I could do with 15 grand that would be more valuable to everyone. So, R3Dog wants to know, what's the best quality analog camera to fit something like the Diatone Roma F4? What's the best quality analog camera to fit something like the Diatone Roma F4? Is it just got a standard 19 millimeter camera? I don't know, because the website isn't loading. Probably because some plugin I've got. Let's go in incognito mode. Every time a website doesn't load, it's probably because some plugin I've got is breaking it. Like my right-click plugin. That's it. It's my right-click plugin, isn't it? Disable right-click. Watch. If I... can I, like, temporarily disable this? Disable. Okay, now let's reload. No? Okay, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. All right. Well, I don't know what is. But anyway. Looks like a standard 19 millimeter camera. So, like... Oh, it comes with the Runcam Phoenix 2. Shut up. That's a great camera. That's one of the best. R3 Dog. Runcam Phoenix 2, baby. That's a fantastic camera. The Foxier T-Rex has some of the highest resolution of any analog camera, but I believe it also has poor latency, which doesn't really matter if you are doing long-range stuff. Excellent dynamic range and high resolution. Caddx Ratel is solid. I don't know if it's like a top tier. I think the Phoenix 2 is one of the best. The T-Rex has extremely high resolution. Jeremy Sarge thinks the Ratel is better. That's fair. I remember when Caddx first came out, and I was like, who the hell is this Caddx? Can I... I did a roundup of all the Caddx analog cameras a while back. I cannot find it, though. It's in there somewhere. What's the best 3-inch HD Freestyle 4S quad? Best 3-inch. I would pick the GepRC Smart 3.5 if you said 3.5-inch. The best 3-inch. Is it a toothpick? Let's check my website. This is my website, fpvknowitall.com. It's got my shopping list on it, and it's got a page here for sub 250 that will get us in the 3-inch-ish range. Bind and fly. No, they're all 3.5. There you go. How about the Avant Quads Avio 3? The Avant Quads Avio 3. That's a good 3-inch. I bet a lot of people here haven't heard of Avant Quads. They actually make some really good stuff. But I think that if you're thinking about a 3-inch, you should in fact be thinking about a 3.5-inch, unless you just absolutely can't tolerate that extra half-inch. So, that's my opinion. Looks like I missed a super chat. Asalas77. Oh, we got a couple super chats in here that I did overlook. JC Cantrell, thank you for a $10 super chat. And thank you for troubleshooting my 10-inch quad problem. Thank you, JC, for the donation. Appreciate it. G Boney FPV, thanks for a $2 super chat. What's your opinion of Mr. Steele's Avata video? Yeah, Mr. Steele did a video where he ripped the Avata. My opinion is that it is always amazing to me how no matter what quad a pilot is flying, their personal style always seems to shine through. It still looked and felt like Mr. Steele was flying that quad, even though it was a completely different quad than he normally flies. I was pretty impressed. It seemed like a lot of fun to just see him rip it around. And Asalis wants to see if I can look at this message in troubleshooting. So let's do that. Thank you very much for a 10, I think those are Sloty donation. Now where is the message? Asalis says, what can cause the flight controller to flip out on arming, but only sometimes, and other times it flies okay? Sometimes when I arm, it takes off instantly, starts jumping up and down, or has very bad vibrations on punch-outs and the motor sounds twitchy. But if I power through it, suddenly it starts flying normally. So I think that this is likely to be a problem with your gyro chip on your flight controller. And the reason it happens only at the beginning of the flight is because when the battery voltage is higher, there's more electrical noise in the quadcopter. And that electrical noise like messes with the gyro data and the flight controller freaks out. But then as the battery voltage drops, the amount of electrical noise goes down and things settle down and it becomes okay. I realize that probably sounds extremely far-fetched for me to just like throw that out. But it's like the only thing that I'm aware of that can consistently cause gyro-related problems only when the battery's fully charged. And then after 10 or 20 seconds of flying, it settles down. So that's my guess as to why that's happening. The fact that the quadcopter hovers sometimes and then randomly starts freaking out, I mean, this probably goes without saying, but we'll get it out of the way. It means that there's nothing wrong with your configuration. Like your motors are all spinning the right direction, your flight controller orientation, your channel mapping, all that is fine. It has to be a hardware problem of some kind. And what you're describing, rough sounding motors and so on, that all points to issue with the gyro. I wouldn't think that this is something to do, like sometimes gyro issues can be caused by a cracked frame plate or a delaminated arm. But I would not expect that to sort of randomly come and go. I would expect that to be fairly consistent. It feels like you've got an electrical problem or a damaged gyro. And unfortunately, the fix for that is probably going to be a new flight controller. The one thing I guess I would check is whether your capacitor has come disconnected somehow. A missing capacitor could cause something like this, maybe. So I hope that's helpful. King Kick the channel. Thank you for a $2 super chat. Can I use the ISDT 608AC to power the VFly Whoop Store? That's a tough one. The 608AC, I don't want an Amazon listing. I guess Amazon's okay. Does it have a USB output, first of all? Rotating choice. It doesn't seem to have a it has a micro USB. Okay. So it has a micro USB output. What does that output? Is that like 25 watts, or is that just 5 500 milliamps at 5 volts, or 2 amps? Hello? Doesn't say. Stop. Website designers, can you stop? Can you stop with this bullshit? I'm literally in the middle of using your website, and you've just thrown this effing thing in my face. Can you just not? doesn't, I can't find any spec for the USB output. Output voltage, power supply voltage. What's the power? I think it's 19 volts. The power supply voltage itself is, I believe, 19 volts. Let's check. Still, God dang it. I cannot effing believe this nonsense. Can I just have the specs, please? Can I have the frickin' basic specifications? Output voltage, fine. What is the output voltage of the power supply? And what is the output of the USB charger? Oh, the okay, so the USB is for firmware upgrade only. So that's a no-go. What is the output of the power supply? That's what I want. I think, okay. Oh, even better. Okay, so this settles it. This has the DC power output mode. So I think that the power supply is 19 volts, in which case that is within the safe rating of the VFly Whoop Store. You could just plug the Whoop Store directly into the power supply for the S608AC. But the 608AC also has a DC power function, which lets it output any voltage that you want, in which case, yes, you definitely can use this to power the VFly Whoop Store. So there you go. We got a response here about rooted goggles with video output. Junis says there may be some problems with WTFOS and video out. We need to look into it. You can temporarily boot WTFOS on the goggles in safe mode to disable modifications by holding down the bind button while booting. You'll hear 3 short beeps from the goggles to confirm. Yeah, but I'm not giving up my OSD. Hell no. Slarterbartfast is skeptical about noise related to voltage. It's really simple, man. At a higher voltage, the ESC spins the motors faster, and there's higher voltage. The resulting electrical noise is also higher voltage. That's my. I mean, I haven't verified that on an oscilloscope, but it seemed plausible to me. Slarterbartfast suggests heat is a potential. The reason I don't think it's heat is because people say when they plug in, and this is over multiple examples, not just the specific one, but in the past people have told me that when they plug in a discharged battery, then the problem doesn't happen. They've said it only happens on fully charged batteries. We got 2 skeptics in here. Yeah, I mean the battery initial voltage. So if the battery starts off fully charged, then there's gyro noise problems. But as soon as you run it down from like 4.2 to like 4.15 or 4.1, then it settles down and is okay. And if you plug in a battery that is already discharged, it also doesn't happen. I've had that reported to me at times in the past, and that has been the guess as to why it's happening. We could be wrong. I don't literally know everything about FPV. If that's the true, then it wouldn't happen on 5S or 4S either. That's right. Samuel Lambert asks, how does the ESC throttle the motors? I thought RPM had to do with voltage and kV. Samuel, the ESC throttles the motors by varying the length of the PWM pulses being sent to the motors. So the motors are always exposed to the full battery voltage. And the only difference between, low throttle and high throttle is the percentage of time that they're exposed to the full voltage. Now, so we've got this PWM frequency, 48 kilohertz or whatever. And based on that frequency, the voltage goes between battery voltage and 0 volts so many thousand times per second. And the length of each of those pulses determines how fast the motor tries to spin. Where at full throttle, it is exposed to the full voltage for the full length of the pulse. And at lower throttle, that percentage goes down. Now, because motors are inductive loads, there is some averaging of that voltage. So that although there is like a 48 kilohertz PWM signal going into the motor, the average voltage that the motor actually sees and experiences inside its coil is somewhere between 0 and full voltage. But the actual voltage that the ESC is passing through itself into the motor coil is a PWM a pulse width modulated signal that varies between 0 volts and full battery voltage. Asalis says, I don't think that's it. I've had it happen after I landed halfway through a pack and tried to take off again. I mean, Asalis, if it happens only immediately after you take off and it's not related to pack voltage, that's hard to explain. That's hard to explain. Imaginary Banana asks, how should I logically troubleshoot loud motor noise and pitch bobbing after crashing multiple times? The first thing you crashed multiple times, so congratulations. Something's up. I would check you have to just do a full mechanical check of the quad. Check all of your frame plates. Twist your arms, try to bend your arms and look and see if an arm is delaminating. Look for any loose screws. Check for missing screws. Can't tell you how many times I've crashed and then the quad is flying weird and I've got a missing screw. If you punch the throttle and the quad consistently dips an arm one direction, you could have a bad ESC or a damaged motor. This wouldn't show up on the bench. It would only show up when you actually have the motor loaded with a prop on. Another rule of thumb I have is that if the quadcopter dips in the pitch direction or the roll direction, or if it moves on the yaw direction, that points to the flight controller as a problem. But if it dips in a diagonal direction, assuming that you have a Quadex style frame, which a lot of people do, if it dips in a diagonal direction, it means that the motor it dips towards is having a problem. Eric Ashner asks, it looks like I have a bad ESC that I bought over a month ago. Has never been in a crash. What are the odds I can get it RMA'd? That's a long shot, Eric. In my opinion. It depends a lot about who you bought it from. Some stores are going to be more generous than others. If you're more than 30 days out, I think a lot of stores are going to tell you to pound sand. Especially, you say it's never been in a crash, What that tells me is that you installed it and you've been flying it. So it's not even like it was sitting on a shelf for a month and then you installed it and it didn't work. Right? You say it's never been in a crash. So that means you've been flying it for a month plus and now it died. I don't think a lot of stores are going to RMA that for you. Maybe if it was new in box and had been sitting on a shelf for a month and you went, hey, it was DOA. Maybe somebody would generously take care of you. But if it's been installed and flown, hey, I mean, it never hurts to ask. But personally, I think the answer is going to be no. Go for it. You could always ask. What's the quietest DJI quad not to piss off my neighbors? SJ asks. Thank you for a $2 super chat, SJ. What's the quietest DJI quad? I think it would be the smallest one, wouldn't it? That would be the one that would not piss your neighbors off the most. So like the Mini 2? Audio Geek says, if it's new in box, we get a 2-year warranty by law here. Yeah, okay. Welcome to a country with consumer protections. Cats in FPV says he means DJI compatible, like a Vista. Oh. That's tougher. I think that as far as pissing your neighbors... See, here's the thing. Very large drones are actually quieter in some cases than smaller ones because the large props spinning at a low RPM make less noise. But I would never, if you're concerned about pissing off your neighbors, I'm not going to suggest you get like a 10-inch, right? You're going to want something small. A small quadcopter that makes a high-pitched whining noise may, like by some decibel meter, be louder or more annoying than a large quadcopter that has a low-pitched prop noise. But the small one is always going to be better if you're concerned about your neighbors because it's going to terrify them less. So I would get something small. You could get a little Cinewhoop with prop guards that's going to help not piss them off, depending on what type of flying you want to do. You get a little 3-inch freestyle drone. They're not too loud. Cinewhoops actually tend to be a little louder than other ones. Brian Souter suggests the Baby Ape 3, but that doesn't come with DJI, does it? Bi-blade props, RC Ritter, very good suggestion. 4-inch or 5-inch bi-blade props. You guys are 100% right that 7 or 8-inch bi-blades are going to be much quieter. I just feel like if you're flying like around your neighbors and you're worried about pissing them off, a 7 or 8-inch is going to be more stress-inducing. Steady Eddie, thank you for a $5 super chat. What's up with the new graphene LiPo batteries? Any experience with them? I don't think they're new, Steady Eddie. I remember... Can I still find this video still out here? I mean, Turnigy graphene. I remember when Turnigy graphene came out. And I was testing these back in 2016. I'm not sure how you could tell whether an advertised graphene battery actually has any like new technology in it or whether it's marketing. The bottom line is that we have excellent performance out of standard batteries, and so I'm not sure I would pay extra for a battery that claimed to have graphene. Graphene batteries are a thing. I'm just not sure how you would know that you were actually getting that thing and whether it would be worth it for you. I would just get a solid battery that's well reviewed and has, known good performance, and not seek out graphene, because I feel like you would risk paying more for something that you weren't really getting. Played Swag asks, is there any risks with parallel charging boards? Yes! Yes! Yes, there are huge risks. There are huge risks. That's like, yes. If there's anything you need to know about parallel charging boards, it's that you can destroy every battery that you plug into the board all at once and light them all on fire all at once. And I don't mean that for fear-mongering, but I mean, like, if you're thinking about whether you should get a parallel charging board, you should be well-versed about how to use them safely and the potential risks. Yes. Yes. You need, if you're asking that question, and, you know, I commend you for asking that question. But if you're asking that question, don't buy a parallel charge board yet. Be like, you say, I'm thinking about buying a flamethrower for my 10-year-old. Do you think there's any risks to that? There's a lot of weeds in the garden. I feel like if he had a flamethrower, he'd really be able to clear those suckers out. I'd be like, I don't think you should buy... no, don't buy that. So do some more research. Okay? We're coming, we got 5 minutes left in the stream, everybody. Thank you for sticking with me. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming after me at 3 p.m. He's going to start streaming. And he's posted, I see him already posting the link. That's how I knew the stream was coming to the end. Sim Sunday, Ripsqueak Explosion, Newbie Drone 1102 Mosquito Ripping. Ciotti, definitely check him out after my stream is over. We're going to go for another 5 minutes, though. My parallel board saved Savas Ionides' house from fire last week. I'm glad to hear that. When do you think the new GoPro Session will be out? Asks In the Attic FPV. In the Attic, we know that the Hero 11 Mini is targeted for October 25th. It seems silly that they would release the Hero Session 6 before then, right? Clearly they're not going to. So certainly no earlier than October 25th. However, we also haven't seen any leaks of the actual camera as far as I know. And typically with a GoPro, there's a few weeks of leaks and then it comes out. So I can tell you, I know people who say that they are testing the GoPro 6, the Session 6. I'm as convinced as I could be that it is a real product and it's coming. I don't have any guess as to when it would be, except that it's after the 25th when the Mini releases. Northern Tier, the Mini 11 is not the new Session. It is not. I mean, the question between the Hero 11 Mini and the new Session 6 is, how much do you want your camera to weigh? If you want it to be in the 70-ish gram range, that's the Session. And if you want it to be in the 120-ish gram range, that's the 11. We also don't know anything about the specs of the Session. So that may matter. Don Fushi, if your Radio Master throttle is scratchy, open the radio up and get some heavy damping grease and put the damping grease on the little slider on the throttle. Super Deluxe, there's no way that it's going to be lighter than the bones. It's not even, like, I don't even think that's possible. So, Willie asks, I have the TX16S version 1 with a 4-in-1 module, but all my drones have Crossfire. I hope to replace the 4-in-1 module with Express LRS, but there's nothing like internal ELRS for the Radio Master. Any chance to have this inside the TX16S V1? Willie, I'm sure that you could put the module in there, but I don't think Radio Master sells the module separately. I think you should just get an external Express LRS module. And as a bonus, you'll get 1 watt output power instead of 250 milliwatts. There's not really a downside to doing that, though, that I can think of. Ciati has had to run to the bathroom, so his stream is going to be late. So I guess I'll just keep going until he comes back. Excuse me. I wish that Radio Master would sell that module separately so people could upgrade their V1s, but they have said that they thought that they were going to do it, but I haven't heard any confirmation that it was happening at any particular date. Jonathan wants to know if I can pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce that letter. Jonathan, is it cheating if I look up how to pronounce that letter? Or did I just guess? Like, if I had to guess, I would just fill it in with some vaguely Scandinavian sounding vowel, which who knows if I even would get it right. Jonathan Mugelmoose? Mugel? It's probably not a U sound. Mugel? I don't know. There you go. Goose? Mugelmoose? There you go. That's my guess. Ciati back from the bathroom yet? This is the content I came for, Overbase says. Yes. I read some Dutch in the last stream, and apparently Dutch is relatively easy to pronounce phonetically, I guess, because people said my pronunciation wasn't that bad. Quadrophenia, good to see you again, man. Haven't seen you in a long time. Which will last longer, a FetTech flight controller or the UK's latest Prime Minister? On that note... Oh, now, Peter, Peter, I couldn't even begin. I couldn't even begin to get yours, Peter. Nope, I could not. Where's that name even from, man? Surname, origin, meaning. Where's this from? Don't tell me that's German. Hungary. That's a Hungarian name. Uh-huh. Yeah. Hungarian, Polish. A lot of the spelling from that area of the world, I do not know enough about how to pronounce it to even take an educated guess, to be honest with you. Let's see if I got that right. Let's see if I got this letter, how close I got this letter.
Or looking at how to pronounce this letter.
Ooh,
How
that's
do you
calming.
say it? It's commonly found in Norse languages, Norwegian, Swedish, for example.
Ciati's back.
As That's exactly the same sound as in French. Found in the word bleu, for example.
Bleu.
You'll find it in German. It's an O with an umlaut on it. As öffnen in German. So this is how you say the letter.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Now how about this one? Okay. How to pronounce. You got a pronunciation for me?
Xotoni.
Shotoni. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay. Alrighty, well, that's it for the stream. Ciati's back from the bathroom. We're going to let it go. You guys, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. for the evening stream. And have a great stream, Ciati. Have a great afternoon, everybody.